The vase shattered at my feet, and I knew what was coming. It had been an accident, a moment of carelessness, my elbow catching the edge of the porcelain as I hurried past. The vase had toppled from its pedestal, crashed against the marble floor, and exploded into 1,000 irreparable pieces. My stepmother's favorite vase. The one she claimed had belonged to her grandmother. The one she had warned me never to touch, never to look at too closely, never to breathe upon wrong. I stood frozen, staring at the shards scattered across the hallway, my heart pounding so loudly I could hear nothing else. Perhaps if I cleaned it up quickly, perhaps if I found a way to replace it, perhaps if I... What have you done? The voice came from behind me, cold and sharp as a blade. I turned to find Lady Ashworth, my stepmother, though I had never called her anything but my lady, standing in the doorway to the drawing room. Her face was a mask of fury, her eyes blazing with a hatred that had been simmering for 7 years and had finally found an excuse to boil over. My lady, I am so sorry, it was an accident. An accident. She stepped closer, and I instinctively stepped back. That vase was priceless. Irreplaceable. It has been in my family for generations. I will pay for it. I will find a way to replace. With what? She laughed, a cruel sound that echoed off the walls. You have nothing. You are nothing. Your father left you nothing but debts and a worthless title, and I have been forced to house you, clothe you, feed you, for 7 years while you contribute nothing to this household. That is not true. I work every day. You exist. That is not the same as work. She was very close now, close enough that I could see the veins standing out on her forehead, the trembling in her raised hand. I have tolerated your presence out of respect for your father's memory. But this is too much. Her hand swung toward my face. I closed my eyes, bracing for the blow. It never came. Instead, I heard a voice deep, cold, and utterly commanding. Remove your hand from her vicinity. Now. I opened my eyes. Standing in the hallway, between my stepmother and me, was a man I had never seen before. He was tall, imposingly so, perhaps 6'3", with broad shoulders and a presence that seemed to fill the entire corridor. His hair was dark, touched with silver at the temples, and his eyes were the color of winter frost. He was dressed in clothes that spoke of immense wealth, his bearing that of someone who had never been denied anything in his life. And his hand was wrapped around my stepmother's wrist, holding it immobile in mid-air. Who are you? Lady Ashworth sputtered. How dare you? I am Sebastian Blackwood, Duke of Thornwood. His voice was ice. And you will not touch this young woman again. Duke of Thornwood. The name echoed in my mind, conjuring fragments of gossip I had overheard from the servants. The Duke of Thornwood, one of the most powerful men in England, reclusive, rumored to be everything from a saint to a monster. He owned half the county, commanded an army of servants, and had not been seen in society for nearly a decade. And he was standing in my stepmother's hallway, defending me. This is my household, Lady Ashworth said, her voice trembling with fury and something that might have been fear. This is my stepdaughter. I have every right to discipline her as I see fit. Discipline. The Duke released her wrist, but his eyes never left her face. Is that what you call it? I call it assault. I call it cruelty. I call it the behavior of a woman who believes she is above consequence. She broke my vase. A vase can be replaced. A young woman's dignity cannot. He turned to look at me, and I felt the full weight of those ice-blue eyes. Are you injured, Miss Ashworth? I managed. Cordelia Ashworth. And no, I am not injured. She had not yet. Not yet. His jaw tightened. Which implies this is not the first time she has raised her hand to you. I could not answer. My silence was answer enough. I see. The Duke turned back to my stepmother, and I saw her flinch. Lady Ashworth, I came here today on a matter of business. I now find myself concerned with a matter of far greater importance. Your Grace, this is none of your concern. I am making it my concern. He stepped closer to her, and she actually backed away. I have heard rumors about this household for years. Rumors about how the late Baron's daughter is treated. Rumors about the conditions in which she lives. I dismissed them as gossip. He paused. I no longer dismiss them. Whatever you have heard is exaggeration. Is it? Then you will not object to Miss Ashworth leaving with me this afternoon. To visit my estate, where she can tell me in her own words what her life has been like since her father's death. Leave with you? Lady Ashworth's face went pale. Absolutely not. She is my responsibility. She is a grown woman of 23 years who is entitled to make her own decisions. The Duke looked at me. Miss Ashworth, would you like to leave this house? I stared at him. This could not be happening. This stranger, this powerful stranger, was offering me an escape from the prison I had lived in for 7 years. He was offering me a chance to tell my story, to be heard, to matter to someone for the first time since my father died. It was too good to be true. But what did I have to lose? Yes, I said. Yes, I would like to leave. Then collect your things. His voice softened slightly. You will be safe. I give you my word. I looked at my stepmother. At the woman who had made my life a misery, who had treated me as a servant in my own father's house, who had been about to strike me for the crime of accidentally breaking a vase. And I walked past her without a backward glance. The Duke's carriage was waiting outside. It was the most luxurious vehicle I had ever seen, black lacquer with gold trim, pulled by 4 matched horses, attended by footmen in immaculate livery. Inside, the seats were soft velvet, the windows hung with silk curtains, and every surface spoke of wealth beyond anything I had ever known. I sat across from the Duke, acutely aware of my own shabby appearance. My dress was several years old, patched in places, the fabric faded from too many washings. My hair was pulled back in a simple braid, and I wore no jewelry. All of my mother's pieces had been sold years ago by my stepmother. I looked like exactly what I was. A poor relation, a burden, a nobody. You are staring at me, the Duke said mildly. I looked away quickly. Forgive me, Your Grace. I am simply overwhelmed. Understandably so. He crossed his legs, regarding me with those penetrating eyes. I apologize for the dramatic intervention. I had intended to introduce myself properly, but circumstances required a different approach. Why were you at my stepmother's house at all? Business. Your father and I were acquainted many years ago, before his death. I had matters to discuss with Lady Ashworth regarding the estate. I was not aware that my father knew anyone so distinguished. He did not advertise the connection. We served together briefly, during the war. He saved my life, actually. The Duke's expression flickered. I have always regretted that I was not able to repay that debt before his death. My heart clenched. My father saved your life. He did. We were ambushed by enemy forces, and I was wounded. Your father carried me nearly a mile to safety, despite being injured himself. He paused. He was a good man. A brave man. I owe him everything. I felt tears pricking at my eyes. He never mentioned it. He would not have. That was not his way. The Duke leaned forward slightly. Miss Ashworth, I must ask you some difficult questions. About your life since your father's death. About how you have been treated. I do not wish to speak ill of my stepmother. You are not speaking ill of her. You are speaking the truth. His voice gentled. I am not your enemy, Miss Ashworth. I am trying to understand what has been done to you, so that I might help. I looked at this man, this powerful stranger who had appeared in my life like something from a fairy tale. I took a breath. And I told him everything. The story took nearly 2 hours to tell. I told him about the days immediately following my father's death, when my stepmother had dismissed most of the servants and moved me from my comfortable bedroom to a small attic room. I told him about the jewels and heirlooms that had disappeared, sold to maintain my stepmother's extravagant lifestyle while I wore patched dresses and ate scraps from the kitchen. I told him about the work I was expected to do, not the light duties of a daughter of the house, but the heavy labor of a servant. Scrubbing floors, washing linens, tending fires. I told him about the punishments for perceived failures, meals withheld, privileges revoked, and yes, physical discipline that left bruises I had learned to hide. I told him about the isolation, how my stepmother had cut me off from society, refusing to present me, refusing to allow me to attend events or receive callers. How she had spread rumors that I was sickly, unstable, unsuitable for company. How she had made me invisible. The Duke listened in silence. When I finished, his face was a mask of controlled fury. 7 years, he said quietly. You have endured this for 7 years. I had nowhere else to go. No family, no resources, no options. I twisted my hands in my lap. I tried to contact my father's solicitor, but my stepmother intercepted my letters. I tried to run away, but I was brought back and punished severely. Eventually, I simply stopped trying. That was not weakness. That was survival. His jaw was tight. Miss Ashworth, I want you to understand something. What has been done to you is not merely unkind. It is criminal. Your stepmother has stolen your inheritance, abused you physically and emotionally, and isolated you from any possibility of help. I know. But there is nothing to be done. She controls everything. My father's estate, my future, my very existence. That is where you are wrong. He leaned forward. I am the Duke of Thornwood. I have resources, influence, and a very particular set of skills when it comes to destroying those who prey upon the vulnerable. Destroying? Your stepmother believes she is untouchable. She believes that because she is a widow, because she controls your father's estate, because she has convinced society that you are unfit for company, she can do whatever she wishes without consequence. His smile was cold. I intend to disabuse her of that notion. How? First, I am going to have my solicitors examine your father's will and estate documents. I suspect there are irregularities, funds that should have come to you, provisions that were ignored, perhaps outright fraud. He paused. Second, I am going to reintroduce you to society. The real you, not the fiction your stepmother has created. I cannot afford. I can. Consider it repayment of the debt I owe your father. He held up a hand when I started to protest. This is not charity, Miss Ashworth. This is justice. Your father saved my life. The least I can do is save his daughter from the woman who has been destroying her. I stared at him. Why would you do this for a stranger? Because it is right. Because your father deserved better than to have his legacy squandered and his daughter abused. His eyes met mine. And because I know what it is like to be at the mercy of people who care nothing for your welfare. I spent years in that position before I came into my title. I will not stand by while another person suffers the same fate. I felt something loosen in my chest, a knot of tension that had been there for so long I had forgotten it existed. Hope. For the first time in 7 years, I felt hope. Thornwood Hall was unlike anything I had ever seen. It rose from the English countryside like a palace from a dream. Towers and turrets, gardens and fountains, a vast edifice that spoke of centuries of wealth and power. As the carriage approached, I pressed my face to the window like a child, unable to believe that this was where I would be staying. It is overwhelming at first, the Duke said, watching my reaction. The house has been in my family for 300 years. Every generation has added to it. It is beautiful. It is large. Whether it is beautiful is a matter of perspective. He smiled slightly. I find it lonely, most days. The rooms are too big, the halls too empty. But perhaps that will change. I did not know what to say to that, so I said nothing. The staff that greeted us was impeccable, footmen and housekeepers and maids who moved with quiet efficiency, clearly accustomed to the highest standards of service. They treated me with the deference due to a guest, which was so foreign to my experience that I did not know how to respond. You will have the blue suite, the Duke informed me, as a housekeeper led us through endless corridors. It overlooks the garden and has excellent morning light. If you need anything at all, you have only to ask. Your Grace, I cannot. You can and you will. His voice brooked no argument. You are my guest, Miss Ashworth. You will be treated with every courtesy and comfort this house can provide. The blue suite was larger than the entire attic I had occupied for 7 years. The bed was enormous, hung with curtains of blue silk. The windows stretched from floor to ceiling, flooding the room with light. There was a sitting area, a writing desk, a dressing room, a private bath, luxuries I had forgotten existed. And waiting for me was a wardrobe full of gowns. I took the liberty of having some things prepared, the Duke said, when he saw my astonished face. They are yours to keep, whatever you decide to do. This is too much. It is not nearly enough. He paused in the doorway. Rest tonight. Tomorrow, we begin the work of reclaiming your life. He left, and I stood in the middle of that beautiful room, overwhelmed by emotions I could not name. For the first time in 7 years, I did not feel like a prisoner. I felt like a person. The investigation into my father's estate revealed exactly what the Duke had suspected. fraud on a massive scale. My stepmother had been systematically looting the Ashworth fortune since my father's death. She had sold properties, liquidated investments, and diverted funds that should have been held in trust for me. The will had specified that I was to receive a significant inheritance upon reaching majority, but that inheritance had been stolen, spent on my stepmother's lifestyle while I lived in poverty. The evidence is overwhelming, the Duke's solicitor reported, laying documents across the study table. Lady Ashworth has committed multiple counts of fraud, theft, and breach of fiduciary duty. If these matters were brought before a court, she would face severe consequences. What kind of consequences? I asked. Criminal prosecution, potentially. Certainly civil liability. She would be required to repay what she has stolen, with interest. Her reputation would be destroyed. I looked at the Duke. Is this what you want? He asked quietly. Justice through the courts. Public exposure of her crimes? I do not know. I stared at the documents. Part of me wants to see her punished. She made my life a misery for 7 years. She stole everything my father left me. I paused. She hit me. Many times. And no one ever stopped her. Someone stopped her now. Yes. You did. I looked up at him. But will destroying her in public make me feel better? Or will it just create more scandal, more gossip, more ways for society to look down on me? That is a wise concern. He leaned back in his chair. There is another option. A private settlement. Lady Ashworth would be confronted with the evidence and given a choice: return everything she has stolen and sign a document admitting her wrongdoing, or face public prosecution. She would never agree to that. She would if the alternative was prison. His smile was cold. People like your stepmother believe they are untouchable. They believe their social position protects them from consequence. When they discover they are wrong, they tend to become remarkably cooperative. I considered this. A private settlement. My inheritance returned. Her acknowledgement of what she did. And one more thing. The Duke's eyes were hard. She will never contact you again. She will not speak of you, write to you, or attempt to see you. If she violates this condition, the full evidence will be released to the authorities. You have thought of everything. I have had practice. He rose from his chair. The choice is yours, Miss Ashworth. I will support whatever you decide. I looked at the documents. The proof of 7 years of cruelty and theft. Do it, I said. The private settlement. I want my inheritance back, and I want her out of my life. Done. The confrontation with Lady Ashworth took place 1 week later. She was summoned to Thornwood Hall, a summons she could not refuse, given the Duke's status and influence. She arrived in her finest clothes, clearly expecting some kind of social victory, perhaps a marriage proposal for one of her natural daughters. What she found instead was her ruin. I watched from a chair in the corner as the Duke presented the evidence. Every forged document, every stolen sum, every lie she had told to maintain her theft. Lady Ashworth's face went from confident to confused to pale with terror as the full scope of her exposure became clear. This is outrageous, she sputtered. These documents are forgeries. They are not, and you know it. The Duke's voice was ice. My solicitors have verified every claim. The courts will do the same, should this matter proceed to trial. I will fight this. With what? The money you stole from your stepdaughter. He smiled coldly. Lady Ashworth, you have 2 choices. Sign the settlement agreement, return Miss Ashworth's inheritance, and disappear quietly from society. Or refuse, and face prosecution for fraud, theft, and assault. Assault. I witnessed you attempting to strike Miss Ashworth in your own hallway. I am prepared to testify to that fact. His eyes never left her face. The choice is yours. But I suggest you choose wisely. Lady Ashworth looked at me. I saw hatred in her eyes, pure, undiluted hatred. She blamed me for this. She blamed me for everything, as she always had. This is not over, she hissed. Yes, I said quietly, it is. She signed the documents. And just like that, 7 years of torment came to an end. The weeks that followed were a revelation. For the first time in my adult life, I had money of my own. I had clothes that fit and were not patched. I had food whenever I was hungry, rest whenever I was tired, and the freedom to come and go as I pleased. And I had the Duke. He remained my constant companion during this period of adjustment, helping me navigate the complexities of my newly recovered fortune and the social world I had been excluded from for so long. He was patient with my ignorance, kind about my mistakes, and always there when I needed him. "You do not have to do this," I told him one evening, as we walked through the gardens of Thornwood Hall. "You have already done so much. I cannot repay you. I am not looking for repayment." "Then what are you looking for?" He stopped walking and turned to face me. "Company," he said. "Conversation. The pleasure of watching you rediscover yourself after years of being diminished. That is all. Is that not enough?" I looked at this man. This powerful, complicated, unexpectedly kind man who had swept into my life and changed everything. "I do not understand you," I admitted. "You are the Duke of Thornwood. You could have anyone, do anything. Why spend your time with me?" "Because you are unlike anyone I have ever met." His voice was soft. "You endured 7 years of abuse without breaking. You survived cruelty that would have destroyed most people. And yet you remain kind, hopeful, genuinely good in ways that I—" He stopped. "In ways that you what?" "In ways that I had forgotten were possible." He turned away, looking out over the garden. "I have spent years building walls around myself. Protecting myself from people who might use me, hurt me, disappoint me. I had convinced myself that it was safer to be alone. And now I am not so certain." He glanced back at me. "You make me question things I thought I understood. You make me want things I had given up on." My heart was pounding. "What things?" "Connection. Companionship. Perhaps." He paused. "Perhaps more, if you would be willing." I stared at him. "Your Grace." "Sebastian. Please. After everything we have shared, you must call me Sebastian." "Sebastian." The name felt strange on my tongue, but also right. "Are you saying what I think you are saying?" "I am saying that I care for you. That I have come to care for you more than I expected, more than I intended, more than is probably wise." He stepped closer. "I am saying that I would like to continue this, whatever this is. Not because I owe your father a debt, but because I want to. Because you have become important to me." I felt tears streaming down my face. I have been alone for so long. I had convinced myself that no one would ever want me. That I was damaged, worthless, unworthy of love. You are none of those things. He reached out and gently wiped the tears from my cheeks. "You are remarkable, Cordelia. You deserve every happiness. And I would be honored if you would allow me to be part of that happiness." "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I would like that very much." He kissed me then, gently, sweetly, a promise rather than a demand. And I knew that my life was about to change in ways I had never imagined. Our courtship was unconventional but wonderful. Sebastian did not treat me like a prize to be won or a burden to be endured. He treated me like a partner. Someone whose opinions mattered, whose experiences were valuable, whose presence enriched his life. We spent hours talking about our pasts, our fears, our hopes for the future. He told me about his own difficult childhood, raised by a distant father who valued title and wealth above all else. He told me about the loneliness that had plagued him since coming into his title, the way people saw only his position and never the man beneath. "You are the first person who has seen me," he said. "Really seen me. Not the Duke of Thornwood, but Sebastian. The man." "You are the first person who has seen me too," I replied. "Really seen me. Not the burden, not the victim, not the poor relation. Just Cordelia. We see each other. We do." It was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. I had spent so many years being invisible, being diminished, being told I was worthless. Learning to believe that I was valued, that I was loved, took time. But Sebastian was patient. He proved his feelings through 1,000 small acts of kindness, through respect and consideration and the way he looked at me like I was the most important person in the world. And slowly, I began to believe. The proposal came 3 months after my rescue from Lady Ashworth's house. We were in the library at Thornwood Hall, my favorite room in the enormous estate. Sebastian had noticed my love of books and had given me free access to his collection, encouraging me to read whatever caught my interest. I was curled in a chair by the fire, lost in a novel, when he knelt beside me. "Cordelia." I looked up, startled. And I saw the ring. I know this may seem sudden, he said, his voice uncharacteristically nervous. I know we have only known each other for a few months. But I feel as though I have been waiting for you my entire life. Sebastian. You do not have to answer now. I will wait as long as you need. But I wanted you to know that this is what I want. You are what I want. Not because of your father, not because of guilt or obligation or any sense of duty. Because I love you. You love me. I love you. He said it simply, firmly, as though stating an obvious fact. I love your courage and your kindness and the way you laugh when something genuinely amuses you. I love how you see beauty in small things and how you never take anything for granted. I love who you are and who you are becoming. I was crying again, happy tears this time. I love you too, I said. I think I have loved you since you caught my stepmother's hand and told her she would not touch me again. Is that a yes? That is a yes. 1,000 times yes. He slipped the ring onto my finger, a beautiful thing, sapphires and diamonds that sparkled in the firelight. And then he kissed me thoroughly. I was engaged. I was engaged to the Duke of Thornwood. I was engaged to the man I loved. The wedding was the social event of the season. Everyone who was anyone attended, lords and ladies, dukes and duchesses, royalty and commoners who had somehow earned an invitation. The church was decorated with flowers, the music was sublime, and I walked down the aisle in a gown that made me feel like a princess. But the most beautiful part was Sebastian. He stood at the altar, watching me approach with an expression of such love and wonder that I nearly tripped over my own feet. When I reached him, he took my hands and whispered, "You are magnificent. So are you." We exchanged vows that we had written ourselves, promises not just to love and honor each other, but to see each other, to support each other, to face whatever challenges came our way as partners. When the priest pronounced us husband and wife, Sebastian kissed me so thoroughly that I heard gasps from the congregation. I did not care. I was married. I was safe. I was loved. The first year of our marriage was everything I had dreamed and more. We traveled to Sebastian's estates across England, meeting the people who depended on us, learning how to work together as partners. We attended balls and parties, no longer as outcasts but as a couple at the center of society. We built a life together, a real life, full of laughter and love and all the things I had been denied for so long. And we talked about children. I want a family, I told Sebastian one night, as we lay together in the darkness. I want to give our children everything I never had, love and security and the knowledge that they are valued. We will give them that, he promised. We will give them everything. Our first child was born the following spring. A daughter with her father's dark hair and my grey eyes. We named her Sophia, after my mother, and I wept when I held her for the first time. She is perfect, Sebastian said, his voice rough with emotion. She is ours. Yes. He kissed my forehead. She is ours. Sophia was followed by a son, Marcus, named for Sebastian's grandfather, and then another daughter, Elizabeth, named for no one in particular, simply because we loved the name. Our family grew, and with it, our happiness. I never forgot where I had come from. I never forgot the years of cruelty and isolation, the way I had been treated as less than human. But those memories no longer defined me. They were part of my story, not the whole of it. The whole of it was this: love had found me when I least expected it, and it had changed everything. 20 years later, I stood in the hallway of Thornwood Hall and watched my daughter prepare for her first season. Sophia was 18 now. Beautiful and confident and utterly unafraid of the world. She had grown up surrounded by love, secure in the knowledge that she was valued and cherished. She had never known cruelty or neglect or the feeling of being invisible. "Mother, you are staring," she said, catching my eye in the mirror. "I am remembering." "Remembering what?" "The day your father found me." I moved to stand beside her. I was about your age. I was standing in a hallway not unlike this one, and I had just broken a vase, and my stepmother was about to strike me. And father stopped her. Yes. He caught her hand and told her she would not touch me again. I smiled at the memory. I had never had anyone protect me before. I did not know it was possible. "Father says you saved each other." "We did." I tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. "He gave me safety and love and a future. I gave him companionship and hope and a reason to stop hiding from the world." "That is romantic." It is true. Which is even better than romantic. I kissed her cheek. Go on, now. Your father is waiting. And try not to break any vases. She laughed and swept out of the room. I stood alone for a moment, looking around at the hallway where I had spent so many happy years. 20 years ago, I had been a broken girl, beaten down by cruelty and neglect, convinced that I was worthless and unlovable. Then a duke had stepped forward, caught my tormentor's hand, and changed everything. Lost in thought, I turned to find Sebastian standing in the doorway, watching me with the same love and warmth he had shown me every day since we met. Thinking about how far we have come, I said. A long way. A very long way. I moved into his arms. Thank you. For what? For seeing me. For saving me. For loving me even when I did not know how to be loved. Thank you for letting me. He kissed my forehead. You are the best thing that ever happened to me, Cordelia. I never tire of telling you that. And I never tire of hearing it. We stood together, holding each other, surrounded by the life we had built. It had started with a broken vase and a raised hand. It had ended with a love that would last forever. Subscribe to see what happens next. And comment where you're watching from. I would love to say hello to you, just to know how far our story is reaching across the world.